How can we increase the average order value per customer? Now here's how to do it with a simple upsell in the shopping cart. Hey, Jan here, codingwithjan.com, and today I want to show you how to set up an in-cart upsell just like the one you would find on Pura Vida Bracelets.com, where they offer you some additional products whenever you add an item to the cart. So for instance, here you can see they offer me a mystery bracelet and this mystery ring. And at first, this might seem like a minor feature, but if you can boost the revenue on a store or increase the average order value per customer, then one could also spend more on customer acquisition, like in social media ads, for instance, or just walk away with higher profits or a higher return on ad spend. And this is why I like the idea and think it's worth sharing. Now, development-wise, this is going to be a little more advanced, and we would definitely need some JavaScript to update the cart without doing an entire page refresh all the time. But as usual, let's do it together step by step and let's get started. All right, so today I'm actually starting off with a brand new copy of the Brooklyn theme. And in the history of this channel, it's actually the first time we're using something different than Debut. But the reason for that is simply because the Brooklyn theme already comes with such an Ajax cart drawer implemented, and building this functionality out from scratch would just exceed the scope of this video. Maybe that's something for another day. Let me know what you think. But for now, I'm going to stick with this one. Now, what I also did in advance, besides importing some of these demo products, is creating the mystery product itself. So this is actually a standalone product, just added a new one, gave it a title, uploaded an image, which I actually created in Microsoft Paint, started with a 500 by 500 canvas, coded it black, added some text above. I'm sure you can figure that out. And the price is set to €5, because on this development store, all the deals are insanely good. And then I also unchecked this checkbox to track the product quantity because I want to make sure that this product is always available. Yeah, but that's basically the setup. Now, what we're also going to need in order to add this product to the cart is its variant ID. And it's not the one that we can find right here. This is the product ID. But in Shopify, actually, every product is backed up with a variant. And in this case, this one product has one variant, which is the product itself. So we're going to need to figure that out. And I think the easiest way to do that is just previewing the product page. And then we can right click anywhere on the page, just view the page source. And now I will just search for variants. And then we can see the variant ID right here. And I will take note of that. If you quickly want to make sure that you've grabbed the right ID, what you can do is go to your base address, and then you can just add cart/add and then question mark. And now we pass an URL parameter, which is the ID equals what we've just copied. And when I hit enter, this product should get added to the cart, and it does. So this seems to be the right ID. All right, so now I think the next logical thing would be to understand how products get added to the cart without doing an entire page refresh. And the theme already has some functionality for that, so maybe we can make use of that. And after that, we also would need to understand how this cart drawer is made up so that we can add our upsell offer down below. But for now, let's focus on the Ajax add to cart functionality. And usually the corresponding code is executed when one of two events occurs. One could be the add to cart button is clicked, and the second one would be that the underlying product form is submitted. And this might sound a little confusing because actually the add to cart button invokes the submission of the underlying form. But code-wise, you can just decide which one you want to listen for. That will be more clear in a minute. And I think now is a good time to dive into the theme files. Now, before making actual changes to a theme, I would also recommend creating a quick backup. You can just click on the action button, duplicate. This will instantiate a copy down below. And especially if you're working in a live store, then I would also recommend working in that copy first. You can just click the action button, edit code, preview everything, and then publish at the end. But as I'm working in a development environment, I can just work within the main theme directly. Okay, so as we try to identify all the code that belongs to this Ajax functionality, maybe the most intuitive thing would be to search for anything containing Ajax. And this brings up the Ajax cart template. But apparently, or as the name suggests, this is just the template for the actual drawer, but not what makes the whole thing work. So then it must be somewhere within the JavaScript files. And in the Brooklyn theme, the main JavaScript file is called theme.js. Sometimes you would also find something like app.js. But in this case, it's theme.js. And in here, you can actually search for anything like add to cart, product form, cart drawer, Ajax cart, Ajax. Maybe some of these will leave clues. So let's try add to cart. And this is the first result, which actually looks quite promising to me. All right, I think we need to slow down a bit here and see what we have. So we have an object that is called Ajax cart. And this is meant to represent this whole Ajax cart concept with all its functionalities and values. And on top you can see a couple variables defined. I assume this is just for better readability. And down below, all these variables get actually defined. So for instance, here we have the init function, which holds all the settings on how to select the product form, how to select the cart container, basically how to select all the relevant elements. And then we actually select these elements based on the settings. Then we have a couple other things. And this one is very interesting. Take over the add to cart form if Ajax is enabled. So here they are actually listening, or they start to listen to the event I mentioned earlier, where you could either listen to the add to cart button click or to the form submission. So this form override function will be very interesting. But first we see a couple other functions like load cart, update count price. And here we have it, the form override. And what you see here is they grab the product form, which was selected based on the settings we saw earlier. And on the submission, all the code in between these curly brackets gets executed. These two lines are just for styling, but this one is the most relevant when they add the item based on the form that was just submitted. And here they pass down the form itself and two other functions. One is the item edit callback, which gets executed on successful adding the item, and the item error callback, which gets executed when an error arises. And these two functions are actually defined down below. And then follows a bunch of code which actually helps to display the actual drawer and all the products within it. But let's not worry about this for now. This one is the most interesting. All right, so now it feels a bit like I get to the limits of what I can explain with words. So let me show you really quick what kind of data gets passed when the product form is actually submitted. So let me add two console log statements. Console.log. One could be the headline, maybe data that is passed. And the other one will be console.log and the actual data, event.target. Save everything and then refresh the product page. And now I inspect this page with the Chrome developer tools, switch over to the JavaScript console and add the item to the cart. And now you can see that the data that is passed is the actual product form. You can see it highlighted in the page right now. So what comes to mind is maybe we can have our own little product form for the mystery product. And then we can just reuse this function and eventually everything else will work right away. All right, so let's switch over to the product template file and see how they make up the product form. So somewhere in here, we should find the product form. And here it's defined in a quite complicated way because they render all the different options and variants and whatnot. So maybe at the end of this form right here, end form, we can prototype a very lean product form for our mystery product. So let's type this all together. We will start with an opening form tag and a closing form tag. And the method we are going to use will be post. And the action URL to post against will be cart/add. And then we need a select element in between. And that will have a name attribute of ID, as in variant ID, the variant ID we want to add to the cart. And in between, we will have a single option element with a value that holds the variant ID that we've copied way earlier. So I have mine right here. And as a text, we could put something like mystery product for now, but this will be hidden anyways. And then we'll also need a button to submit the whole thing. And therefore, the type will be submit. And as a text, we could now add, let's do add to cart. And then save everything. And after another refresh on the front end, we should now see our new prototype product form for the mystery product. And if I click on the add to cart button, we get redirected to the cart page, but the product gets added, which is cool. And now we need to work on Ajaxifying this product form. So back in our product template, let's give each of these elements an ID so that we have an easier time referencing them. So the first one could have the ID, let's say upsell underscore form. And the second one could have the ID upsell underscore select. And the last one, let's do ID equals upsell underscore btn. Naming convention wise, this is not ideal, but I think this is the most intuitive for now. And now back in our JavaScript file, I want to show you where this function actually gets used, because right here it's only defined but not used. So let's search for form override. This is the variable, and this is where the function call is made, so where the function gets invoked. And now I actually want to call this function twice, one for the original product form and one for our mystery product form. And in order to differentiate which is which, we actually need to modify the function definition a little bit. So let's add an input parameter, which is namely the form we want to work with. And the form that is passed to the function is the one on which submission we want to listen to. So let's replace this form container with our new form variable. And within the function calls, we can now call this function once for the form container and once for our upsell form. So let's do $, parentheses, and in quotes we can do hashtag because we reference this element by ID. And I think we gave it an ID of upsell underscore form. And let's save that. So back on the front end, let's give it a try. Main product add to cart works well. Mystery product add to cart works equally as well. Nice. So let's keep up the momentum and actually work on migrating our mystery product form to the actual cart drawer. And maybe we can do it in a quick and dirty way. So let's inspect the mystery product we have in cart. And then you would see that this whole HTML section is called Ajax cart underscore underscore product. And maybe we can just copy the whole section to our clipboard, copy element. And then back in the theme files, I want to switch over to the Ajax cart template. And this template is actually used with a plugin called Handlebars, which helps to re-render content all the time without refreshing the page. So everything you see down below gets re-rendered when an update is needed or when an item is added to the cart without refreshing the page. And what is also interesting is these raw and end raw tags, because Handlebars actually has a very similar syntax to Liquid. You can see we have double curly brackets line, double curly brackets URL. And everything in between raw and end raw tags doesn't get evaluated with Shopify Liquid, so that Handlebars can take over. So what we also see right on top is a for each loop in Handlebars, which creates this whole section Ajax cart product, which we just copied for every product in the cart. So maybe we can just go to the end of this for each loop. It's down here, and paste everything that we have in our clipboard. And if we save this template now and check back on the front end, and then you should see that we have an additional mystery product at the bottom of our cart drawer, but it's not like actually within the cart because it doesn't add to the costs, as you can see here. This is just some hard-coded markup within our template file. And even if I remove the mystery product from the cart, it would still stay there. And maybe we can use this markup and remove the quantity selector and replace it with an add to cart button to offer the upsell. So back in our template file, this is everything we pasted hard-coded. Maybe we can remove some of these spaces to make it look a bit more clean. Yeah, let's do that first. Helps with the overview. And now let's remove everything that has to do with these quantity selectors. So it's everything in between here. Now we should only be left with this div called grid underscore underscore item 1/2. And now we will go back to the product template and copy our prototype product form for the mystery product, just to clean that template up again as well. And then I will just paste it in between our Ajax cart template. And now back on the front end, within our cart drawer, you can see our mystery product upsell offer. But now the select element takes all the space, so we need to add some stylings first. So back in our theme files, let's search for CSS. And here we have the theme.scss. go all the way down to the bottom. And maybe we can add a little comment, custom styles. And then we will do hashtag upsell underscore select, curly brackets. And in between the curly brackets, we can just type display none to hide the select. And then we can also adjust the styling for the upsell underscore btn. Maybe color white would be better within the card drawer because it's black, like text color white. So maybe we can do hashtag ff semicolon. And then we could also add a little border, maybe border 1 pixel solid and white as well. Oh, colon. Okay, let's save this as well. And back at the front end, this should look way better now. Perfect. All right, so now I was testing the Add to Cart button one more time and noticed that out of a sudden it wouldn't work anymore. And the reason for that is because apparently you can't nest HTML forms. So that is to say, you can't have one HTML form within a larger one. And what I didn't notice is that this whole card drawer is a huge HTML form in and of itself, because you can submit it and then get to the checkout. And I could even show you that within the template file. So let's go back there. So here we have our small prototype form. And actually this lives within the larger form, which almost wraps the whole template. And actually that's a very, very common thing with programming in general. It almost never works on first try, and especially not the way you planned it. So now I had to come up with a small workaround. Maybe we can just move the form element to a different place. For instance, the theme.liquid, where it will be available on every single page in the shop. But we can leave the Add to Cart button right here. Then we only need to tell the button to which form it belongs. So maybe we can just write form, and then we add the form ID, which is upsell underscore form. And then we cut out the button and paste it down below the form. Then we grab the whole form and cut it out. Save the template file. And now we can bring up the theme.liquid file. And maybe right after the opening body tag, so let's search for body, we can paste our upsell form. Indentation is not too great with this editor. Usually you would want to use a local editor, but for now I think this is okay. And then you would also want to hide this within the theme.scss file. So maybe we can go back to the theme.scss and add one further line, upsell underscore form, curly brackets, and we will just add display none. Save the whole thing. And if we go back to a product page, the Add to Cart button should now work, and it should only work on product pages yet. We will fix that in a minute. But first, let's test it out. And the mystery product gets added, perfect. And now the last two things we have to work on is one, hide the upsell offer once the item has been added to the cart. And second, make it available on every single page and not only on product pages. So in order to make this feature available throughout the whole store, let's go back to our theme.js file where we made the form override call with our upsell form. And then we moved our statement or our function call outside of this if statement, because the if statement checks if the Ajax card is enabled at all, and it checks whether we are on a product page or not, or let's say if this regular product form is available. So maybe we can just copy the first part of this if statement and paste it on top of our function call. And then we can save this file again. So back on the front end, let's see if this feature still works on other pages of our store, maybe the home page. So let's add another mystery product. And it seems to work just fine, nice. And now we only have to hide this offer once the item has been added to the cart. All right, so one last time back in our theme.js file, we go back to this Ajax card object, and now we scroll down a little bit further up until we reach a function that is called build card. So this is actually what renders the whole card. And you can see if the card is empty, they just show this empty message. And otherwise they start to collect all the data necessary for the handlebars template. And maybe we can just introduce a new variable called show upsell, show underscore upsell, which can be true per default. And down here, they start to loop over all the different items in the cart. And maybe we can just check if one of these items is our upsell, and then we set this show upsell variable to false and hide the upsell offer subsequently. So maybe we can just highlight the curly bracket where they loop over all these cart items and scroll to the end of this function. It's a little longer, and I hope by now it makes sense why we didn't write the whole cart drawer from scratch. But maybe right before the end here, we can drop into a few new lines. And then we can just check if the current cart item ID equals our variant ID. So this is this one right here. Then we want to set our show upsell variable to be false. And then we also need to push this variable inside this data object. So let's do show upsell colon show upsell and comma. So this is what ultimately gets pushed into the handlebars template. And now we can save this file. And now one last time in our handlebars template, we go back to all our custom code. It started right here. And now we will do double curly brackets, hashtag if, and then show upsell, which is the variable we just pushed into this template, double curly brackets. So this is the syntax for writing an if statement in handlebars. And then down below, we will also need to terminate this if statement, curly brackets slash if curly brackets, and then save everything. And now one last test on the front end. So we start with an empty cart, and now we add the product to the cart, and we get the upsell offer. And once we add this product to the cart, the offer gets dismissed and the product gets added. And if we remove the product, the offer reappears. So now it seems to work just fine. Nice. All right, everyone, we finally did it. And if you're still watching, congratulations, because this time it was quite hard to explain, and I can only imagine it must have been equally as hard to follow along. But anyways, I hope you had fun watching. Maybe you even learned something new. And if you haven't already, check out my website or subscribe to the channel. And then I just hope to see you in the next. Have a good day. Bye.